Shalom, my name is Yehoshua and this is a video response to Barack Obama's speech on President Bush's final State of the Union. I'm an American citizen. I'm a didactic scientist. I live in Jerusalem for the past 22 years. It suffices to say I want to put my biases on the table up front. I'm no fan of George Bush. I'm a supporter of Barack Obama for president. I'm the author of Humanomics, the trilogy, comprised of two paradigms, its central organizing principle. First, let me say what is Humanomics. Humanomics is the post-East-West convergence model, post-collapse of the local reality. What does that mean? Both East and West systems have collapsed. I began observing the phenomenon of the collapse of the local reality globally 18 years ago. It's been confirmed. And everybody knows the Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, their systems of communism collapsed. Now they're in denial and they're reinventing the wheel, but they have. And 9/11 brought the implosion of the capitalist system, and it's in meltdown ever since, and will continue until we come to ground zero. I want to give some very significant advice and warning to the American people. I love and respect and admire very much Senator Obama and what he's doing, what he's already done in bringing forth unifying the nation, but I want to speak about specifics. The collapse of the local reality globally is the context of history that we're in. And Barack Obama, you don't know what this is, and you must know it. And I've made every attempt. I've made hundreds of videos and written. It's just been awesome, the amount of work that I've done, and it's been to no avail. So let's continue with what has to be said. The collapse of the local reality brings the the post-collapse of the local reality East-West convergence model, and that is Humanomics. And Humanomics confirms the end of man and mankind's exile from God and from man's authentic self, while the atheists and the secular humanists are saying, and the agnostics are saying, there is no God. Well, let's just be very clear. The end of man and mankind's exile also implies simultaneously for secular in any part of the world the pre-modern and modern end and the beginning of post-modernity and the ascent of cognitive man replacing behavioral man, based upon its new central organizing principle, and that's Humanomics in general, and in particular receiving to give, which for the secular is the new cognitive behavioral science first principle, so it applies to both. Okay, I'm the author of Humanomics. I'm the author of its two paradigms, receiving to give its central organizing principle, and its new economic paradigm, the integration of labor. A lot of time is being squandered and wasted in futile debates. It's a non-starter, it's a non-brainer that the invasion of Iraq and the pretext of weapons of mass destruction was spun largely by Dick Cheney to cover as a pretext the enrichment. Look, if we're going to, after 9/11, if we're going to go off half-cocked with a cowboy from Texas and his six-shooter, and we're going in, let's make money. So Halliburton and his cronies produced $15 billion of revenue, record revenues last year in Iraq, mostly, and $3.5 billion in profits. Hey, great work if you can get it, folks. Let's go rob the treasury. Look, these guys have blood on their hands, and the basic message of Barack Obama, my friend, I love you, I respect you, but let's get to the bottom line. Changing the political system is the 1%, but the fundamental and awesome, massive change that has been brought by the historical event of the collapse of the local reality globally has collapsed both East and West systems. Its meaning on the psychosocial level is precisely that. 9/11 is the metagrammar that confirms it. It also confirms it on the cognitive level. On the cognitive level, we see the implosion of the two major monotheistic religions, Christianity and Islam. And the Muslims are more ahead of the Christians in recognizing this. On the third level, the cognitive level, we see the implosion and the meltdown of the two largest economies, namely America and Japan, under the tremendous and unrelenting and continuing pressure of the cost of oil at 126 a barrel going to 200. Look, you're going to face massive change. But now the most important change on the psycholinguistic level. The collapse of the local reality ends man and mankind's exile, and that's the religious definition. It deals with and addresses most significantly the transformation of man, and that means that each individual faces the transformation, and this means the end of man and man's exile means it's now compelled that man must ascend from the behavioral to the cognitive, and the analog for doing this to effect the deconstruction, deprogramming, restoration, and healing of the experience of exile requires the recognition of the analog that is the ascent of man, essentially. We have imposed at this time a dichotomous framework where man has to separate before he can ascend to inhabit the quantum reality. He has to acknowledge and end the denial of the collapse of the local reality. And this paradox, when he first hears the things that are in this video, he perceives a paradox. And next, he rationalizes, man and mankind clings to ground zero, rationalizes that it's a dilemma. This undergoes a formal first order phase transition when the denial ends that recognizes and accepts the dichotomy, and the dichotomy imposes an absolute irreversible separation in order for man to ascend to inhabit the quantum reality. This is the work of my life. This is Humanomics in general, which is the new post-collapse of the local reality convergence model of East and West, and its two paradigms. Its central organizing principle is receive to give, having two faces, having two sides of the coin. It is, and I want to tell a joke. You know, Lincoln was accused by a political adversary of being two-faced, and Lincoln said, "My dear sir, are you serious? If I were two-faced, do you think I'd be walking around with this ugly face?" Okay, so let's have in Barack the same sense of humor as Abe Lincoln had, and let's have the same greatness. Look, Senator Obama, I want to say it plainly and clearly. You face challenges that 1,000 George Bushes couldn't stand up to in one day. The challenge of modernity, of the post-modern, or for the secular, it's post-modernity, and for the religious, regardless of culture, whether Christian or Muslim or Jewish or wherever in the world, it is the end of man and mankind's exile. The changes are absolutely daunting, and the articulation and the first perturbations that are coming out of Jerusalem that are articulating this will grow into a mighty river. And the bottom line is very simple. The end of man and mankind's exile will eclipse and dwarf the presidential candidacy of Barack Obama. And the content will provide the fundamental solutions, and most particularly the economy. The economy is the real issue. And you're not talking to it. You're not talking to it on the macro level, on the level that it deserves. The fundamental transformation of the American economy, and the extreme corruption and bias between Wall Street and Main Street. And I want to point out to you, speaking about the jobs, the economy and jobs, over 100,000 people in Wall Street have lost their jobs. And I haven't heard you say a word about that. Those people also need help. And so the new economy has to be developed, implemented, and acculturated in order to build the new model of the new economic paradigm is world-class global technological infrastructure. It'll create tens of millions of jobs. Sustainably, it'll take the economy from 14 trillion to 50 trillion. I want to hear about that. The world wants to hear about that. I have many thousands, tens of thousands of videos and people writing me and saying, well, why isn't Obama speaking about this? Well, come on, let's get to it. Let's get on the stump and let's get started to talk about this and debate this, because this is what's going to determine who wins the presidency, and the rest is not so important. Thank you for listening. I'm Yehoshua from Jerusalem.